Next.
Thank you so much, colleagues. So let me just take a process check. It is now after 10 p.m. I know we've been going for a great many hours, and there was some discussion earlier in the day about whether we would look at the measures collectively on the 11th. So let me just check in and also check back with our council president process-wise on where you want to go from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, for chairing and giving me a little bit of a break. We do have 4 more ballot items plus 1 policy, which is related to one of the ballot items. And it is my desire to have some level of discussion so that we can discuss, debate, and also hear any amendments so that if these are moved to the 11th, we also have more information and the public does as well. So I know it's really late. I know some of you might have other time constraints, but I do want to encourage us to maintain our quorum and give these ballot measures a fair hearing. City Attorney Parker?
Yes, Madam President, for your consideration, you could continue this meeting to tomorrow when people are fresh. I don't know what people's schedules are. You can continue it for up to 5 days, but that wouldn't be workable. I just think that people may be waning a bit. And if you want to have that discussion, it might be more productive if people can move their calendars around and continue the meeting tomorrow.
Yes, that is always an option. Keep in mind that the next scheduled meeting is the 11th. Items would be due to the packet Thursday at 4. So there's also that consideration, but I will entertain comments from the council in terms of keeping going now versus other options. Councilmember Taylor?
Let's go for it. Let's just
Okay.
push through.
That is my preference. Okay, Madam Clerk, please read in the next item.
Item 10, a resolution on the city council's own motion submitting to the voters at the November 8th, 2022 general municipal election and advisory measure on spending public funds for infrastructure and other costs related to the development of the Oakland Athletics proposed baseball stadium and real estate project at Howard Terminal.
Thank you. Councilmember Gaia, would you like to introduce your item?
Yes, thank you. I want to first of all thank the members of the public, our neighbors, our residents, and also the city attorney for helping us develop the language that's before you to make sure that the legalities are all met and all the regulations and so forth. And so this item is from the public, and we represent the public that elected us, came at their request to ask the city council to put this on the ballot in November as an advisory vote. And the reason why it was asked is I think we've been, and all of us recognize for a number of years now, 2-3 years, we've been in discussion regarding Howard Terminal in terms of the A's leaving the Coliseum. But for the record, I want to make it very clear. I've been an A's fan all my life. I attended, supported the A's, and have a great deal of respect for the business of baseball. And I would still prefer them to be at the Coliseum and continue to develop it, grow it. And certainly you have all the transportation means from the airport, the BART, the bus, the highways that we as taxpayers paid for, to make sure that the Coliseum continue to be a professional site for sports. And also, we are still paying for it, considering the fact that the Raiders left with the same argument that is being presented today. And also the Warriors, and you all know that you were here, that we had to go to court 3 times to get the $30 million from the Warriors to give back to the city of Oakland. And so we have for those of you that don't know the history, even I think Rebecca would understand that this is not the first time that the A's have chose a different location to build a stadium. When I got on the council, they were moving to Fremont. They were going to the city of Fremont. That didn't work out. Then they were going to San Jose. They had the land, everything in place, except the Giants said, no, you're not going to take our fans from us. And they stayed in Oakland. And so what you have before you is a public request as an advisory to be able to make sure that the citizens of Oakland are not going to be held responsible for not only the federal and state funds that could be used to rebuild West Oakland, to rebuild the streets in East Oakland, to provide safety throughout our city, but also to make sure that it is clearly defined. Because as of today, I still don't have a complete picture. What are the A's asking for? And what are the A's offering and willing to pay or develop? And that's why when this item came up, Carol Fife and I had asked the city council or the administration to provide an economic financial analysis in terms of Howard Terminal. Because my conversations with the two previous city managers, they had said that they would oppose Howard Terminal based on the cost and the needs for the public to be able to pay. So not only property taxes, paying off bonds, tax increments, and then at the end, if there are any cost overruns, well, the residents would have to pay for that. And so for me, it's very clear from the public, and at first I didn't even agree on the first with them, that I would like to take it to the November election to be able to receive what is the plan, what is the actual financial obligations that the residents of Oakland, not so much the city council, the residents of Oakland would have to pay now through the 10-year process of developing Howard Terminal. And afterwards, once it's developed, because the A's only agreed for a 20-year contract. And so I want to bring that up to you for your consideration. And not only is there concern within the residents, but I also have a resolution with the whereases from the African American Sports and Entertainment Group that we had contracted with to develop the Coliseum. And they provided this for me last week to bring to the council, to hopefully direct the council and the administrator to get the Oakland A's to sit down with them to begin negotiating on the Coliseum, since they already own half of it, and we have the other half. And the African American Sports and Entertainment Group, they have the investors that are willing to put in millions to get the project started. They also have some deadlines that they have to make with the ENA and some other environmental, but yet there's no cooperation or negotiation with the Oakland A's to get that Coliseum built, rebuilt, or at least make it where it's manageable for the citizens of Oakland to better utilize that property. So, I can go on, but due to the interest of time, the request is very clear. The residents, your neighbors, my neighbors, the ones that elected us, they're asking us to be able to have this information on the ballot. And I think at the end of the day, we have to recognize this is a business. The Fisher family's multi-billionaire is not so much about Oakland, but it's a business about how do we generate dollars for my account. And that's pretty much the way I see this developing into, is not so much. So this action we're taking is not so much about baseball, but it's what is in the best interest of the city of Oakland, considering the many needs, from the homeless to the public safety issue to our schools, that we have today. And I've lived here all my life in Oakland, and I've never seen Oakland to the way it is today.
Thank you,
And
Councilmember
certainly we
Mayo.
have that responsibility to meet that obligation, because that's certainly, for me, that's a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Councilmember Fife.
Thank you, Council President Bass. I just wanted to clarify a few things, and we still have our translators with us, correct?
Through the chair, they logged off at 10.
That's unfortunate. But thank you, Madam Clerk. So I will just say that I know there's been a lot of misinformation that's been going around, and there are people who are A's supporters that feel like the East Oakland Stadium Alliance is misinforming people, and there's people from the supporters of the A's that think that it's vice versa. Everyone is saying that there's misinformation going around, but I want to start with number one, the inaccurate statement that this referendum would cost at least $1 million to the voters of Oakland. That wasn't true in March when it was stated, and it's not true today. I wanted to clarify that. I also want to clarify for the record that it will not cost, that it will actually cost Oakland taxpayers funds in moving forward with this project. And the ballpark is 1/12 of the development. And the ballpark is privately funded. That is true. But the reality is there's a lot more that needs to be funded for this project to take place. And the funds that are generated, if it moves forward, will stay in that location for decades. So I just want to be really clear, because there's misinformation going on in a lot of places. And if we're going to tell the truth, we need to tell the truth all the way around. And the fact that we're getting funds from the federal, state, and other government entities doesn't mean that that's not taxpayer money. It's all taxpayer money. It's not just magic private dollars that go into grants that would fund infrastructure development. And it's disingenuous to say that what marginalized communities in West Oakland need is to be connected to the waterfront. There's so many deep needs that arise from the state of Oakland right now that we need to really, really be cautious about how we utilize our dollars. And I know there are a lot of people that have projected my position or have put words in my mouth about where I stand. But the truth is, where we started and where we are now is that I want clarity and I want answers, and I want to know what the city of Oakland residents will be on the hook for, and we still haven't received that. And the last I heard from the A's is that there's an additional $300 million that's needed to close the gap for funding for this project. And I think if we're going to utilize that kind of money that the city of Oakland residents have to pay for generations to come, they should have a voice. They should have a say in that. So while I didn't draft this particular legislation, I want to be clear that I do support Oakland voters having a say in how their tax money will be spent. I've had several town halls, Zoom meetings, community meetings. I've been to town nights last week at 2 different locations, and people in the streets, they're all telling me the same thing. Let me have a say. It doesn't mean that you support it or you don't support it. They just want to have a say. And what's the fear in letting people voice their decision through an advisory vote? It's not going to delay a project that doesn't exist. They just want to have a say that if their funds are going to be used, then they should get to tell us what they want to see. And as elected officials, even if this doesn't move forward today, it will be in front of voters in November. It'll just be in the form of who they vote for re-election. So I just want to be really clear. And with that, Madam Chair, I am complete.
Thank you. Okay, let's hear from other council members. I also invite the city administration and staff to chime in here as well. Okay. Let's go first to Councilmember Kolb, and then we'll hear from Betsy Lake.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. And thank you, Councilmember Gaio, for bringing this forward. I appreciate all the things that you said, as well as the things that Councilmember Fife said. As I mentioned in Rules Committee, I'm not prepared yet to bring this to bring whatever the this is, and I don't even know what the this is yet. We don't have a deal in front of us, to a vote of the citizens. But I see a possible scenario, I hope it doesn't come to play, but there's a possible scenario that when the deal does come to us and doesn't have certain things that I need to see in it, at that point, I would support it. And if that's a special election just on this measure, like in January, so be it. But I want them to understand that we need to see certain things. I think all of us in the council recall the things we asked for, and there's still negotiations underway. And one of the key things that is outstanding is that I want to see, and this relates to the money question that people have been asking, I want to see ironclad, legally binding financial backstops in the proposal, whatever comes before us, the development agreement, what have you, that says if the infrastructure financing district falls short of projections, if there are cost overruns in the infrastructure that the city is agreeing to pay for, if that the city's general fund and the city's dedicated ongoing funding sources that we already have coming to us, general fund or not, that those are protected, that the things we already get and already spend money on are protected, and that these additional costs, if it turns out those additional expenditures are needed to get things to be finished, will be paid for by the A's. The A's are the financial backstop, not the city's ongoing funds and general funds. That's what I need to see. If those financial ironclad backstops are in the deal that comes before us, whenever that comes before us in the fall, then I'm okay us making a decision. I don't know how I'm going to vote on that, but at least I'm okay not having to go to the voters. If those ironclad backstops, and I hope the A's are listening to this, or at least they hope they play this tape, if those ironclad backstops are not in the deal that comes before us, I will vote to put this on the ballot at a special election. And I'm saying that publicly again. So that's my position. I'm not going to vote for this today, but I might vote for it in the future down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Betsy Lake with the administration.
Thank you, Council President. Elizabeth Lake, Assistant City Administrator. And I wanted to just touch on 3 points as you consider this issue. One is I wanted to provide a reminder and a clarification of what we are negotiating with respect to the Waterfront Ballpark District. Talk a little bit about the public outreach process, and then explain some of staff's concern about the proposed ballot measure. So first, Councilmember Kolb is right. We don't have a deal yet to vote on, but it is important to restate that it was this council's clear direction for staff to negotiate a deal that is within the framework approved by the council on July 2021. And that framework requires that the deal not impact the general fund or our current Oakland taxpayers, and that it is beneficial to the city. And that is really the North Star that we are following. And although we're still negotiating, the main deal points remain. And those include, as Councilmember Fife said, that the stadium would be 100% privately financed by the Oakland A's. All the residential and commercial development in the district would be 100% privately financed by the A's. The deal would tax the A's as a future owner of the project site and leverage those A's tax dollars to fund new public infrastructure and affordable housing, both on the project site as well as in the 4 impacted districts surrounding it: Jack London, downtown, West Oakland, and Chinatown, and build 18 acres of new public parks on the Oakland waterfront. And with respect to offsite infrastructure, most of which will implement existing city plans, policies, and the city council's approved capital improvement program, it would be funded by federal, state, and regional grants, which of course is the normal way the city obtains money for such transportation infrastructure. Second, I do want to remind everyone of the extensive public participation that has been a hallmark of this project. There have been many opportunities for public participation already, and more to come. Thousands of Oaklanders have already expressed their opinions through public comment, public information workshops, extensive engagement to develop community benefits recommendations, and more. And in fact, since 2019, more than 100 meetings have been held, including over a dozen public meetings at the City Council, the Port, Alameda County Board of Supervisors, Bay Conservation Development Commission, as some examples. And it's not over yet. Going forward, before any deal at the former Howard Terminal site can be approved, there will be numerous additional opportunities for public comment and input. Once the deal is final with staff, the project will go in front of the Planning Commission, will hold a hearing at the CED, and it will proceed to 2 hearings at the City Council. And importantly, as many of you have mentioned, once we have the final deal, we'll be bringing a full economic analysis of the deal to CED, just like we did with the term sheet in the summer of 2021. And that analysis is easily available on the city's website and will be thoroughly updated to reflect the final deal terms and to provide our decision makers and the public with full and transparent information, just like we did in July of 2021. Then even after the City Council, the public process isn't done. The project must be approved by the Port, the Bay Conservation Development Commission, the Department of Toxic Substances Control, the State Lands Commission. And each of these processes are open and transparent, providing opportunities for the public to provide decision makers with their advice and perspective. So finally, in addition to our concern that this measure would interfere with what the council has directed us to do with respect to this particular project, staff is concerned with the following issues presented by the ballot measure. One, it's vague. It asks our residents whether they agree with using, quote, public funding to fund infrastructure, which is technically the way government funds almost all public infrastructure. Pursuing grants and utilizing tax increment financing are essential economic development tools without which we wouldn't have been able to create treasured community assets like restoring the Fox Theater, the Rotunda, Children's Hospital Research Institute, or develop projects like Uptown, MacArthur BART, Coliseum BART Station, and Fruitvale BART Station projects. And it is advisory, which means it's non-binding and therefore does amount to what we would consider a fairly expensive survey that would create delay and doubt for the project, which is still under negotiation, meaning, again, there's not yet a project to vote on or agree or disagree with. So in a nutshell, staff is concerned that the proposed measure would undermine what this council voted for and directed us to do. And with that, I'll turn it back.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, looking for others to weigh in here.
Madam President, if there's no one else, I'm just. Okay.
Okay, I do see Councilmember Taylor with his hand up. Go ahead, Councilmember.
Sure thing. I was waiting on somebody else to go, but I'll go ahead and jump in with my thoughts. So I definitely hear those who express their concern there around being able to have a say in a vote and be a part of the process. I want to acknowledge that staff have done a significant amount of engagement already and in many different forums across the city through the community benefits process and so many others that I've been able to be a part of, and many that I haven't been able to be a part of just because there's been so much. I also hear that there's I wanted to acknowledge that there are some of those who are against having a vote that were saying, hey, well, residents can't are unable to assess all of the details and the nuance of the project. And I wanted to wholeheartedly disagree with that and acknowledge that we've got some very smart, intelligent residents here in Oakland that absolutely can do as good of a job as we are doing on the council in terms of going through all the details and data and everything else. To me, the issue is that the current ballot measure is worded. It's worded as a terrible question. It's extremely vague. It doesn't provide any real value or information that will be helpful in an advisory capacity. So yeah, wholeheartedly disagree that with the public speakers that said our residents are unable to assess the details and the nuance of the project. I believe that, you know, our educated Oakland voters are not stupid. The ballot question is stupid. It's dumbed down in a way that is confusing, non-specific, uninformative. And I think the one commenter had it right. Based on the current question, we won't know if a voter is voting against Dave Cavill and John Fisher. They're voting against moving the A's from the Coliseum. They're voting against having 35% affordable housing instead of 50% affordable housing, or voting against the use of condominium transfer fees to fund a portion of the community benefits or not. And that level of just not being specific is going to be very uninformative, is not going to help us out. And we're going to be in a worse off situation at the end if this is what moves forward. If there was a survey or a ballot measure advisory, whatever you want to call it, for me to be supportive of it, it would have to be very targeted and specific in terms of highlighting the deal terms and having that be the question and not the backup materials if someone were to double click or read through a pamphlet, that sort of thing. And so the things that would need to be in the question that are asked are, the amount of City of Oakland revenues that are committed to the project that would exist regardless of whether the project were to happen, the amount of City of Oakland revenues committed to the project that would only exist if the project were to be completed, the amount of city dollars at risk if the revenues come in lower than projected, the amount of affordable housing units that are committed to be developed, both on-site and off-site, the amount of construction jobs that'll be created, the amount of ongoing jobs that will be created, the amount of current tax revenues from Howard Terminal coming to the City of Oakland, and the amount of annual tax revenues that will be coming to the City of Oakland upon project completion. None of that detail is in the question, which means that it's not going to be an informed answer, not because we don't have intelligent residents, but because we're not actually framing the question in a way that will be informative and helpful. And so that, to me, is the concern with what we have. As is, I would not be able to support this measure. If there was a much more thorough question, perhaps, but I did want to just be on the record that we're not setting ourselves up for success with what's proposed. And that's my fear and concern with respect to what's being proposed.
Thank you. Councilmember Gaio?
Yes, I'd like to respond to that. Again, I understand what is being said, but Lauren, what you have to recognize, we've been at this for years. We just didn't start this negotiation and planning. So you want to keep delaying it, more talk. Even the African American Sports and Entertainment Group. The African American Sports and Entertainment Group gave me resolution because there's no cooperation. That's public land that we own half, that we want to develop. Make sure that East Oakland thrives like it used to. But you want to keep talking about it. Where is the plan, city staffers? We should have had that, city council. But for me, having it come from the public is the motivation to get the job done. Provide the information that I requested, and that's going to get done in September. So at least Lauren Taylor will have some numbers, because right now you don't have any to. You're absolutely right. You're just talking. I can ask a million questions, but what motivated me, and thanks to Carol Fife for bringing the item, what motivated me, right now you have about 15,000 letters that are signed. We get emails daily. We get phone calls daily from the public. Due to the fact that what's going on in your streets, Lauren Taylor, I've never seen Oakland the mess that it is today. So I want to get that job done, members of the city administration. I want to get those streets fixed. I want to get my schools open. And we don't have that information to get it done. Oh no, let's do another study. You can do all kinds of other things. So for me, Madam Chairperson, I will make a motion to honor the request of the public, with all due respect to each one of you, to get it on the ballot. That'll force us to make sure that we get out there and negotiate and get the information and get the whatever it's going to cost the city. taxpayers' dollars, that we should have that information in front of us now, because I have the history of the Raiders. The A's are out there negotiating with Las Vegas daily, using us to leverage more resources from Las Vegas. That's how committed they are, Lauren Taylor. And that's how committed they were going to Fremont and going to San Jose. And, but anyways, with all, Madam Chairperson, I'll go ahead and leave it at that, but I'll make a motion to honor the voters' request and get it on the ballot for November. And let us do the work to make sure we have the information to vote upon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Fife?
Yes, I'll just briefly make a couple comments based on what Betsy Lake said, which is that thousands of Oakland residents have participated in this process. And I'll say, since I've been on council, it's been consistently restated to me that the community that is requested to be a part of this process are community members that have already agreed to bring the A's to Howard Terminal. So it's in essence saying, we don't want to talk to people who have questions. We don't want to talk to people to allay their fears. We don't want to discuss any additional anything unless you agree to the project. I've been told that by city staff, including staff from the city administrator's office on several occasions. And I don't believe that's how you get the best deal for Oakland, even if you want the stadium at Howard Terminal. I think that there needs to be more aggressive negotiation that is not happening. And why would it, when the A's are paying for our legal advice and other things, which I understand is also part of the process, but still, there's just a lot that's disingenuous about this whole process. And once again, I believe that we should tell the truth. And I don't believe Oakland voters are stupid. They have to weigh in on a lot, nor do I believe, as was stated by one of our council colleagues, that this is a dumbed down question. And I think that's quite disrespectful to label Councilmember Gallo in that way. So I just wanted to say that I will second this motion, Councilmember Gallo. And I think we need to continue to move the agenda and this conversation.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. I will allow comments from any council members who haven't yet spoken on this item. Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Thank you very much. And Councilmember Gallo, I heard you say something that I thought was really interesting just now about the importance of making sure that the negotiations around Coliseum proceed. And I just wanted to double check whether you were saying that that would be embedded in this item or you would bring that as a separate item. And I just want to restate how much I respect your leadership on that and my interest in working with you on that.
Yes, that's a separate item that has already been written, all the whereases and resolution written by the African American Sports and Entertainment Group. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, I look forward to following up on that separately, given that. And then my question to staff, this is in some ways related to what Councilmember Kolb was asking, is what does staff expect would be the timeline by which we would have a better sense of the nuts and bolts and dollars and cents of the proposal? Thank you.
Okay, let's hear that answer. When the staff is ready, please raise your hand. And in the meantime, I'll go first to Councilmember Tao.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to appreciate Councilmember Gallo for you continuing to lead the charge in your values and what you believe. I think that is why we are all elected, right? We go out and we campaign on our values, and you're sticking with your values, and I really appreciate that and I respect that. And in regards to, I'm excited to actually hear an actual proposal, hopefully sometime soon. I know that in the Rules Committee, we scheduled your item, Councilmember Gallo, to September 20th to hear the cost benefit analysis. So I look forward to that. And I'm in the same boat, Councilmember Gallo, today. I'm in the same boat as Councilmember Kolb. You know, if there needs to be a special election that is called when we do get that proposal so that we can see the cost benefit analysis, then I am all for that. But can't vote with you today, but I do appreciate your values and what you bring. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for continuing that.
Thank you. Let's go to Betsy Lake.
Yes, through the chair, with respect to the question on the timeline, we are hoping to come back to the council in this fall with the deal that we can analyze. We can't actually have the analysis until we have reached a final deal. So it's our hope and expectation that that we'll be back in the fall.
Thank you. Councilmember Reed.
Thank you. I'll just add to the conversation. We had a town hall for District 7, and one of the things, outside of a number of questions that were asked, and one of the things that we heard from those who were hearing and listening to the port, to the city, and to the A's, is that they want to hear the deal. They want to understand and have full transparency on the deal. They have questions that are still awaiting to be answered. They want to see the financial analysis. They want to understand more on the community benefits. And those are all things that I fully support: transparency, outreach, engagement, education. I've asked for that for day one. And that is what I'm hearing. I certainly heard also our District 7 neighbors who called in, and we've had people calling in and emailing our office directly since this meeting has taken place today, asking again for more details, more information before we ask them to weigh in on a particular ballot measure that they would like to ensure that their voice may be lifted up on. And so I agree that there's more information that's needed. I wish that there would have been a detailed information report for this item outside of the legislation that's been provided. I believe that it's important for voters to also know the cost associated with all of the ballot measures that we are weighing today. I understand that ballot measures might on average be over $1 million, and someone can correct me or clarify that as well for the public to understand as we're considering a number of ballot measures. But there are still questions, there's still information. There is still a lack of information for I'm gonna take up for my district also, very bright and engaged voters to make a decision on information with the deal. And so I am going to wait for them to have the information that they are asking for to weigh in as voters on a measure. They have certainly had a lack of clarity with information that they're receiving, and they want to have the information in writing. And so I believe that an information report on that analysis is going to be critical for the voters to see and weigh in on anything that we're asking them to uplift their vote on. And so I regret also, Councilmember Gallo, that I will not be able to stand with you with the decision that you would like to have today. But knowing that every decision that we make is impactful to East Oakland with measures. And I believe that Ms. Lake stated, and we can certainly have her confirm, the total public dollars associated that we know today that will be committed to this project development. If there is any analysis that can be stated on that funding gap that was addressed, what would be needed additionally, or how much public funds the A's have requested in resources that would impact meeting our urgent needs of the city, and especially in areas like East Oakland that were stated. I believe that all of those things and many more questions that we have that we are also looking for city staff's response on are helpful to us, and especially to the voters that I represent, who are still seeking information and clarity to weigh in on this impactful decision.
Thank you. I'll share some of my own comments and then we will call the question. So like many of my colleagues, I do want to share first appreciations to Councilmember Gallo as well as Councilmember Fife, who is the council member of the district where this project would be. I hear loud and clear from literally dozens, hundreds, thousands of Oaklanders. You know, my email box is full. I have reams of paper in my office, having heard from Oaklanders. I walk down the street and I hear from Oaklanders too. So I am taking all of this public comment very seriously. I also am the council member that represents Chinatown, which is about a mile away from the proposed project that will be impacted, just like Chinatown would have been impacted by the prior proposed site for the ballpark. And I do want my constituents to know, I want Oaklanders to know that as the District 2 representative, as the council president, I am listening to all sides on this issue. I definitely hear people who are concerned about what the public investment would be, who are concerned about the impact to our port and our port economy. And I also hear very much Oaklanders who are excited about what this opportunity could be, who want to keep the A's rooted in Oakland. So those are incredible decisions that we have to take into account with all of that information and public input. And I want to remind us that as your council president, I have been working to ensure that we have a strong framework, we have accountability. We will get our questions answered when the final deal comes to us. And again, there is no deal yet, but we did pass a framework in July of last year that lays out what we as the council want to see. And in addition to that, in February, we passed a resolution, which I co-authored together with Vice Mayor Kaplan and Council Member Kalb, which lays out specifically before the development agreement comes to this council, we will get the financial report, which Council Member Gallo has scheduled. We will get a detailed report on what the community benefits concretely will be. We have to hear about the affordable housing that we have put out as our goal. We have to hear about what the jobs policies will be, which is related to what the port needs to deliver. We also need to hear what the plan is for making the seaport continue to thrive. So all of those things will come to us before the development agreement is signed off on and voted upon by this council, in addition to all the other bodies that you heard about that will consider this project. So I want everyone to know that my job as council president is to make sure that we are doing our due diligence before we make decisions. We are listening, we are hearing what your concerns are, we are getting answers, and that we will fully vet this project because there's both a lot of opportunity and a lot of questions. So with that, I am not ready to put this on the ballot. I think we do need to have a deal so that we have the actual information about the numbers, the level of affordable housing, all of those things that we have already mentioned and put into resolutions that we want to know as a council. So I will not be able to support this today, but I am fully committed to making sure that we have a transparent process, we get our questions answered, and that we do allow for even more public participation than already exists through all of our meetings. So with that, I am ready to call the question. Councilmember Reed, I saw your hand just went up. If you could be brief,
Yes.
please go ahead.
Through the chair, I just want to clarify, Councilmember Call made mention, and perhaps it might be helpful to the public with this process. Certainly, hearing that, we certainly prioritize making sure that we take care of our community and uplifting the voice of the voters over some of the things that were stated in public comments. But Councilmember Call mentioned potentially bringing a ballot measure forth in January. Can someone speak to what that process is? If this ballot measure today is not supported, what that opportunity could be? Is that appropriate for someone to address, to give clarity on what was meant by that comment for a potential restating or reworking as we gain more information for a future ballot measure?
Sure, Councilmember Call, do you want to speak to that?
Sure, just to clarify, all I was saying was that if the proposal that does come before us, let's say in the fall, as Ms. Lake is suggesting, that, and it doesn't have what I or we feel is needed in terms of financial security, financial ironclad backstops, as I articulated a little while ago, then at that time, we can choose to create a special election. Now, there's a whole process to do that with the county, but cities are allowed to call special elections for ballot measures if we want to. I don't think that there's anything in our charter prohibiting us from doing that. And so when that special election would be determined when we deal with that at the council. I'm not suggesting I want that or I expect that to happen, but that's always an option we have on the table if we feel the deal before us should go to the voters at that time.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have the motion and second on the floor. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On item 10, moved by Councilmember Gaio, seconded by Councilmember Fife. Councilmember Fife.
Madam Clerk, I do see Councilmember Fife's hand up. Councilmember Fife.
Through the chair to the clerk or perhaps the city attorney, wouldn't the cost of a special election be more than the cost of putting something on the ballot for November?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to check.
Yes, it would certainly.
I'm just saying, okay, thank you. I'm prepared to vote.
On item 10, moved by Councilmember Gaio, seconded by Councilmember Fife. Councilmember Fife.
Aye.
Councilmember Gaio.
Aye.
Councilmember Call.
No.
Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Abstain.
Councilmember Reed.
No.
Councilmember Taylor.
No.
Pro Tem Tao.
No.
Council President Boss.
No.
Motion fails with a vote of 2 ayes, 5 noes, 1 abstention.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who's been engaging on this. And thank you, Council Members Gaio and Fife. I know that was not the outcome that you wanted, but hopefully the discussion was helpful. I think we are committed to ensuring there is even more information and more process participation, transparency going forward. Okay, we do have a full agenda, as we know. I believe